City Skylines 2 just received its biggest update yet. It's packed with highly requested features, a huge selection of new assets, and major bug fixes that significantly improve the game's stability, at least during my tests. So in this video, we're deep diving into everything this update has to offer. And I'll also share my thoughts on the update as a whole and tackle two of the most commonly asked questions that I see in the comments. Is City Skylines 2 worth picking up? And what's the current status of the console version? Finally, I'll wrap with a discussion of the top 5 improvements I hope to see in 2025. And if you're excited about this big update, hit the like button and let me know if you're most excited about the new features, assets, or bug fixes in the comments below. Or leave an emoji representing what you're most excited about for the sake of engagement. But before we jump in, I want to take a moment to talk with you about something very serious. Socks. Wait, stay with me because I might just save the holidays for you and introduce you to your new favorite socks. I've been wearing Bombas for years and I absolutely love them. In fact, I purchased this pair of Bombas with my own money years ago, and they're still in my regular rotation today. These are without a doubt the best socks that I've ever owned. They're incredibly comfortable and built to last. But it's not surprising considering Bombas spent over 2 years researching and designing these socks for maximum comfort and durability. So if you gift these socks, you can feel confident knowing that you're giving your loved ones the very best. And here's the thing, everyone wears socks. They make the perfect gift for anyone, which is why my wife and I gifted them to everyone in our family last year. And if you do that, don't forget to treat yourself. I did, and I can't recommend their slippers enough. I wear them all the time, and they are absolutely fantastic. Beyond making great socks, I love Bombas' mission. For every item purchased, they donate one essential clothing item to someone in need. One purchased equals one donated. To date, Bombas has donated over 140 million clothing items. They also have a 100% happiness guarantee. If you're not completely satisfied, they offer free returns or exchanges, even if your dog happens to eat a sock. So if you're looking for the perfect gift, take it from me, give Bombas. You won't regret it. And as a new customer, you can save 20% off your first purchase with my code CityPlanner at checkout or by visiting bombas.com/cityplanner. A huge thank you to Bombas for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. First up, we have a few fixes for the content creator packs that were just released. For modern architecture, the community fire station can now be upgraded to have the fire station gate and helipad, and it will no longer say object cannot be placed. For the large parks, you'll now see businesses spawn within the parks. Previously, that would never happen. And for urban promenades, vehicles will no longer clip out of the urban fire station or the urban medical center when it's been upgraded. Next, there have been improvements for loading into the game. Now, in my test, this has actually been a pretty big improvement. In the previous version of the game, going from the Paradox launcher to the main menu with a minimal mod set and all the region packs would take about 90 seconds. And with this new build of the game, it takes about 60. So that's a 33% improvement, which is very impressive. Now do know your mileage may vary on this. This is what's occurring on my machine, but I can't guarantee that it's the exact results that you will see. Now I wanted to go a step further and see if loading into saves was faster as well, but for my tests, it's identical. No improvements there. But still, big improvements on loading into the game. Next up is a big one, arguably the biggest bug fix. The homelessness bug has finally been resolved. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this bug, it was devastating. Basically, people could become stuck in your city as homeless citizens, unable to leave parks, unable to find homes, and unable to leave your city. And some of those homeless citizens would have jobs, meaning that the people who would move into your city couldn't get them, and it would tank your demand, not just for new citizens, but also for commercial and for industrial and offices. So with this fix, you're going to see some pretty significant changes. So let's take a look at those. To test to see if this bug is truly fixed, I've loaded into Magnolia County, and bluntly, I think I found the perfect spot to test this. We have this park right here that has hundreds of homeless people in it. In fact, there are so many that they are clipping into each other. This is very close to our train station, and the train is free. So presumably, if the homeless bug is resolved, all of these homeless citizens will unfreeze, walk to the train station, and leave town. Now, I want to be able to be a little bit quantitative about this as well, so I've also added the Sim Census mod into the build so we can see the number of homeless that are currently in our city limits. Now, the reason that I'm starting paused is because the patch notes say that our population is going to jump the moment that we load into the game, because our homeless citizens will now be counted in our population number. So if you see this, this is why it's happening. And you can see that we immediately add about 8,000 population into our city. Those are all of the homeless citizens. So at this point, it's going to be a bit of a waiting game, and I just want to see how long it takes for all of our homeless citizens to unfreeze and walk to the train. And would you look at that, after about 5 to 10 minutes of waiting, our population begins to plummet, and all of the frozen homeless citizens in this park are now leaving. So this is not an instant fix. It's going to take a little while, but holy cow, they are leaving en masse. I'm going to let this simulate for a while, probably overnight, and we're going to see what things look like after this whole process is cleared. But let me tell you, in the meantime, the simulation speed has been very herky and very jerky. So just expect that as this works its way out, it's going to be a little bit slow in terms of your simulation. But let's jump on over and check out what this looks like afterwards. After letting this run overnight, a couple of observations. First, you can see that our population's really grown quite a bit. In fact, we're basically where we were when the homeless citizens were first counted in our population totals at about 89,000. Second, you can see that the number of homeless citizens in our community has dropped to below 4,000, so that's less than half of what we had before. And our demand is still strong across the board. This save isn't plagued with that issue, but we'll check out Segunda Beach in a moment, which is. That said, I'm wondering if we can lower the homeless population even further by providing them low-rent housing. So what I think I'm going to do is add a whole bunch of that right here and see if we can drop that homeless population further. Now, after giving it a bit of thought, I decided not to eliminate a whole bunch of housing at Ike Yards because I didn't want to create a new homelessness epidemic. Instead, I added this road right here and added a whole bunch of French low-rent housing. And what I saw was that the homeless population immediately dropped by 1,000. And what that means to me is that we can actually resolve homelessness. It's a little bit unfortunate that we don't have access to this homeless number unless we use this mod, but it does mean that it is solvable. And if you're seeing lots of homelessness in your parks, you probably need to add some low-rent housing and maybe even that outside connection. Now, I do want to check to see if we can make demand rebound in Segunda Beach. So let's pop on over there for just a moment. Here we are in Segunda Beach, my vanilla build, where you can see that we are suffering from some of our demand issues and where we have a lot of homeless citizens, 526, which is about 10% of our population. Now, as we resume this, we'll see all those folks get counted towards our population number, and we should start to see this decline. However, if we want this to go faster, we're going to need to provide some sort of public transportation out of the city. And that's because in this build, I don't have any outside connections via transit, not taxis, not buses, not trains, nothing. So I'm going to create a route that is going to facilitate this. And this should speed things along. So I'll just add one bus stop and one line. And the purpose of this line is just to get people out of town as quickly as possible. So I'm going to take this, make it 100% free, and crank the number of vehicles here. And I'm even going to go to my other bus routes and ensure that we have as few vehicles assigned there as possible, because those don't take anyone out of the city. I let this run for, I kid you not, less than 1 minute, and look what's happening. A ton of people are marching to this bus stop, and my guess is everyone here is homeless. Check that out. Everyone is indeed homeless. So all we have to do now is wait for all of these citizens to leave town, and we should begin to see our demand start to rebound. So I'm just going to let this simulate for a while, and we'll see when our demand bars come back. At about the 10-minute mark here in Segunda Beach, demand for commercial has started to return for the first time in quite some time. Now, I'm really curious. Yes, right here, this was blank. There was no reason for demand or lack of demand. So we finally have that back. And for industrial demand, it looks like the reason that we don't have demand is we are lacking labor. So to get demand, we would have to have more residential zoned in. Now, our homeless population is kind of stable, but people are still leaving town. So my guess is if I were to let this run for quite some time, maybe like an hour or so, we would start to see that population come down. And my guess is it would be about a third of the homeless population that we had before, so maybe like 200. But in general, I feel very comfortable saying that this issue has been resolved. Things are looking really good. It's just you're gonna have to be patient with this one because it does not resolve immediately. It takes some time. Next, public transit loading time is improved because now trips are distance-based. So this is supposed to be particularly helpful at crowded public transit stops. Now in my tests, it didn't make much of a difference. In the previous version of the game, loading at this particular train station took about 16 seconds. And in the new version of the game, after allowing the homeless situation to shake out, it was about the same. So with this one, your mileage may vary, but it's supposed to be improved, and this should be for transit across the board. Next, there are a number of improvements to nighttime visuals. Now, for this test, I've disabled Lumina. We're going in the summer at 1 a.m., so it should be comparable across all of these shots. First and foremost, I want to show you what it looks like before and after in terms of the overall brightness. So this overall city shot, you can see that things are pretty dark and it would be difficult to play with it this dark. Now in the after, it's just subtly brighter, but I think that little bit of extra brightness does make it playable. In this second shot, you can see much the same thing. Here's the before. I don't know that I could play with it this dark. In the after, it's just a little bit brighter, but that little bit of extra brightness makes it playable at night. Now, in addition to these changes, Notre Dame was also improved. Here's the before shot, and you can see that the lights are really bright in the windows. It always kind of made the asset feel a little bit creepy to me. But in the after shot, it kind of feels a little bit more like the other assets in the game, like things are being illuminated from the inside, and it just looks much more natural. So I think that this is a good improvement. And then finally, the Sky Cube map has been replaced. And this one's very subtle as well. It seems to me like it's a little bit brighter and like there are more stars. So in general, I think that these were very good improvements, but they might be very subtle and you might not notice them unless you're looking for them, at least not right away. But I'd encourage you to go and take a look at your city at night. It's going to look a lot better. Next, we have something that's labeled as a new feature in the patch notes, but I think it's actually a bug fix, and that's service vehicle parking. And I say that it's a bug fix because a number of assets already have service vehicle parking, but they are always empty. And with this update, they'll now have vehicles. So let's check it out. Right here, we have a bus depot. And one thing that's always bothered me about the bus depot is that there's a whole bunch of parking for buses, but it's never filled with buses. They kind of just evaporate as they enter the parking facility. Now, if you remove this, and you have to remove it to make this happen, and you replace it with a new bus depot, you'll see that it comes with a whole bunch of buses, and these buses will now be deployed, and they'll come back and park here as well. Now, one way to tell that you've actually made the replacement is that all of the new service parking stalls will actually be labeled as service parking, and that kind of is universal in all the assets, or at least as many as I've looked at. Now, I really like this because it helps demonstrate the number of vehicles that you have that you can deploy. So I know that I could create a new route and that I have all of these buses available because they actually exist and I can actually see it at the bus depot. But it's not just the bus depot that this applies to. Basically, any service building will have this new functionality. So right here, we've got a small clinic. I'm going to remove this and replace it. And you'll see that this new clinic comes with the ambulances. And as soon as one of these gets deployed, you'll see that it says service vehicle parking here as well. And there it is, service parking. Because this applies to any building that has service vehicles, you're going to need lots of money to replace them. And if you don't have it and you want to accelerate this process, you can pop into the dev menu, go under gameplay, and then you can give yourself money. So if you want a shortcut, that's the way that you can do it. For me, I'll probably just go slow and replace these things over time, but there is a shortcut if you want it. Next, there have been a number of pathfinding fixes. And in theory, these sorts of fixes should improve your simulation speed. First, a bug where tourists would get stuck after their hotel was deleted has been resolved. Second, an issue where you can see some pathfinding issues if you placed a building on a curved one-unit road has been resolved. Third, an issue where trains wouldn't reserve enough space to make a switching movement on a two-way track has been resolved. And fourth, multiple issues related to pathfinding for sick residents has been resolved. Now, for all of these, they are incredibly difficult to test, and I haven't had enough time to do so just know that your mileage may vary. But again, in theory, this should improve your simulation speed, at least in the long term. And finally, a number of bugs that can result in crashing to the desktop have been fixed. This includes a bug where if you have a signature building or an extractor and you don't have that zoning category unlocked, could result in a crash to desktop. That's been fixed. Another one where deleting a broken roadway segment results in a crash to desktop. That's been fixed. And finally, one where if you highlight a building that's missing its prop tree results in a crash to desktop. That's been fixed as well. So again, if you have a specific save that's having crashing issues, I would highly recommend you try to load in and see if you're able to do so now. Moving away from bug fixes, there have also been some UI improvements, such as the vanilla zoning icons being updated with more vibrant designs, and the terraforming and vegetation icons being changed as well. But I think that the most impactful UI change has actually come in the landscaping menu, where all the props and decals now have new icons. For the props, instead of having the black and white icons that they had in the past, they're now full color, which in my opinion makes it a ton easier to find the props that you're actually looking for. And for the decals, rather than being 3D, they're now flat, two-dimensional icons, which makes it easier to find the decals that you're looking for. So these are great improvements. And I kind of wonder if this portends something more dramatic with the UI in the future, and if we're going to see more UI improvements and fixes along the way. There have also been a couple of Paradox mods updates, such as this new splash matches that you'll see the first time you jump in, the number of playsets that you can have being increased to 100, and new warnings for outdated mod subscriptions. Now, I'm really happy to see this, but I'm also a bit concerned. If you take a look at my map for Segunda Beach, it says that it's outdated, and that's because I haven't updated the compatibility version to 1.2. So as a community, we're all gonna have to be really diligent about this, otherwise Paradox Mods is gonna be a complete mess. So for my part, I will be updating this map today, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. And now let's get to the good stuff. Starting out with the new features, and one that everyone has been asking for since Cities Skylines 1, we finally have a line tool baked into the vanilla game. And it's both better than the modded tool and worse than the modded tool. Let me explain. When you enter either the vegetation or any of the props menus, you'll now have this new tool mode, which has two new options. So you have place one like we've always had, as well as place in a line, place in a curve, and place multiple like we had before. So if we go into place in a line, we now have this line tool that pops up, and you can select the distance apart that you're gonna place whatever you're trying to place. Now this will change based upon what you're placing. So you can see with this cultivated green bush, I can get it as close as 1.5 meters. And with these options that I currently have selected, I'd be able to place these right along here in a nice tight row. So that is fantastic. Now, with trees, you might want to mess with some of these options. So let's say you want to place only trees of a certain age. You could say mature and elderly. And then this snapping to distance option really matters a lot. And the state that it's in right now, you can see that we're kind of dragging the tree along, and that distance between the trees is relative. But if I wanted to maintain a certain distance, let's say I wanted it to always be 14 meters, if I select snap to distance, it'll always be 14 meters apart. Now with the next option, the curved option, I think it's actually a little bit more powerful than the modded tool. And that's because let's say I want to have a curve around the roundabout. I could select this one spot here, select where I want the curve to begin, and I'm going to turn off snap to distance for this, and then I can curve. And you can see that it's giving me a perfect 90-degree angle and telling me the measurements. So this is incredibly powerful because it means that I can make a perfect curve right around this roundabout. Now this exact same tool can be found underneath all the props, and here's where it's not quite as good as the modded variants. So let's say I wanted to have some sort of a rock wall along the coast here. Well, the closest I can get these to one another is 12 meters, and honestly, that's not very close. That leaves a lot to be desired. So let's say I wanted to place another one in between. I can, but I'm missing these two because of the collision. And this is just the collision issues with this game that I don't love. I really wish that we could overlap things, but we can't. So if you're hoping that you can make a nice vanilla rock wall, you can't, but you can do what I'm doing right here much, much, much faster. But I think where this is particularly problematic is with the fences. My big hope was that we'd be able to place fences using this new line tool, and you just can't. So let's say I wanted to place a fence right here. To rotate this, it's just like rotating anything else. Hold down the right mouse buttons, you can rotate it, and that is the angle that you'll get with this tool. But you can tell I'm as close as these can be, and it's 12 meters. And what that means is that I can't actually place a fence. If I wanted to do that, I'd have to snap to a distance and then try to line these up and do it a few times. And bluntly, I just don't think it should be this hard. I really hope that they go back to the drawing board with this one because it's so close to being right, and then we get this one issue that is not good. I'm going to keep harping on the collision distances with landscaping and props as well. I just think that they're a little bit more intense than they should be. We should be able to overlap these. We could in Cities Skylines 1. And it really limits creativity. So I hope that they reconsider this. I really hope that they reconsider those collision radiuses as well, because it really creates a number of issues. However, I'm thrilled that this tool is in the game. It does mean that things like this, which took me a million years, are gonna be really easy to do. And this right here, which took me an hour and a half, is gonna be super easy to accomplish. And having this curve tool makes it really, really, really good. And a next step to make it even better would be to have some sort of a variable offset. I think that that could make this really outstanding. But even as it sits, I could make this vineyard in a matter of probably like 10 minutes, which is a huge improvement. So really happy to see this tool in the game. Next, we have the return of a feature that I absolutely adored in City Skylines 1, and that is the Roadside Tree Selector tool. When you're in the vegetation menu, you'll now see this new snapping option that says Snap to Roads. This allows you to take any type of vegetation and snap it to the side of the road. So let's say you want to have spruce trees on the side of the road. You can do that. You can change the age of the tree. So you can say, I only want large elderly trees and I want to place those right here. Easy as pie. This works identically to the Replace tool and very similar to the way that the tool worked in City Skylines 1. But I love that we have the added flexibility to only add it to one side of the road if we want, and that we can now change the age of the trees on the side of the road as well. So if we want to have nice mature oak trees lining these streets, we can do that. Do know it doesn't necessarily work everywhere. In some cases, you'll have collision, and it won't necessarily tell you why, but you can see that that tree did not show up right here. Though we do have the wide sidewalk. And if we want to remove these, hover over the top, right mouse click, back to normal. So this is great because it means that we can now add palm trees to the side of the road right where they belong. Absolutely love this. This is a wonderful tool. And I'm guessing that some of you are wondering if you can place props in the same way. You cannot, unfortunately. So if you wanted to place this flower pot on the side of the road, it will say overlapping item, and that snapping option is not there. So trees and other landscaping options only, but you can place basically whatever you want from this menu. So it really makes your roads a ton more customizable than they were just a day ago. And our final new feature is a returning feature again, the Traffic Routes tool. And I'm so glad that this one is back because it makes it so much easier to figure out where your sims are going. So let's take a look at it. The new traffic routing tool is baked into literally everything in the game. So if you click on anything, you're going to see this new S down here. This is the traffic routing tool. I want to hover over this for a moment because those different colors that you see right there are going to be really important. And I don't know that we see this legend anywhere else. So because I'm clicking on Coleridge Street, I really care about roads and pedestrian traffic, so blue and green. And when I select this, I'll start to see these lines. So this is showing me where people are walking and where they are driving. And the reason why this is important is it can be really useful when you're doing transit routing. So if you're placing a subway or you're placing a bus route, paying attention to this routing can really help you figure out where you need to connect up. Link up your origins and your destinations. You can do this with specific buildings as well, figure out where people are walking to and from, where they're driving to and from. It's a very powerful tool. One critique is you can't select pedestrian networks, so don't think that you can select this pedestrian bridge. It's not going to let you, but you can select basically anything else and figure out where people are going to and where they're coming from. Now, I like to improve the visuals of this a little bit. If you're playing totally vanilla, and you go under traffic and you disable this, now when I click around, I think it's a little bit easier to see this. So I hope that this becomes an option to toggle this sort of a darkness mode. Honestly, having this even darker would be even better, but this is an outstanding tool, and I can see using this a ton to figure out routing. Now, it might have been obvious, but you can use this for basically any mode of transportation in the game. There's a ship, you can see the route there. Same thing with the airplane. This is a really robust tool, and I really like the implementation, and I have a feeling that many people are going to end up using this a whole bunch because there's just so much that you can do with it. So I highly recommend you check this one out. I think the implementation just might be better than in City Skylines 1. But they didn't stop with new features. They added a ton of new assets, and I have a feeling that many of you are going to love these. So let's check them out. First up, we get one city service building, this small taxi depot. And I love this building. I think that it's perfect for a small town for a shared ride taxi system. It's 2 units wide and 4 units deep, and it only has 8 taxis and 8 employees, which means that it's really inexpensive. It actually makes sense to place this before anything else now, and it can even grow a little bit. It has this garage extension, which gives you 4 more taxis, the electric taxi upgrade, which will replace a quarter of your fleet with electric taxis, and it has a dispatch center. So this building will be able to pick up people from anywhere in your city. And look at that, all maxed out. This would fit perfectly in a small downtown in a small community. So I love this. I could also see using this in a large city and just kind of sneaking it in somewhere we don't have a lot of space. Absolutely wonderful city service edition. Next, we've got 7 new roundabouts, which I'm really excited about. We've got this medium concrete roundabout with illumination. It has the tree in the center. So very similar to the one that we had before, but now it has lighting. Right here, we have this medium metallic roundabout with a flower pot in the center. Very attractive. Right here, we have a striped roundabout with a flower pot in the center. Very attractive again. This one is an asymmetric roundabout with a decorative tree center and lighting. You can imagine this one being perfect in an industrial area. Right here we have a mosaic roundabout with a decorative pattern in the center. This would be perfect in a downtown. Right here we have a medium diagonally striped roundabout. Again, kind of a decorative look to it. And then finally, we have this floral roundabout with another interesting floral pattern in the center. And in the back here, I'm showing that we actually have these in all sizes. So it's not just these medium-sized versions. We have a small version, we have the very large version, and the large version. They're all available with these new roundabout designs. Love these so much. Absolutely wonderful addition. And then we have something that kind of came out of left field for me. We have cul-de-sacs. I did not expect to see this, but now if you go into the roads menu, we have a new cul-de-sacs option. Now, you might wonder why we have this, since the roundabouts work as cul-de-sacs, and I think the main reason that we have this is the designs are a little bit different. So we have this real traditional looking cul-de-sac. This is kind of what I'd expect to see in basically any suburban area across the US. We also have this grassy version and this version with a tree. And the main difference between these versions and the roundabout version is that the curbing's a little bit different, feels a bit more appropriate. This has an apron that you'd expect a truck to be able to drive over. This one feels like a proper curb like you'd see in a residential neighborhood. Now, these are available in a variety of sizes. So you have the small, the medium, and the large, and the zoning changes accordingly. So it's just like the roundabouts. It's just that the design is slightly different. The roundabouts still do function as cul-de-sacs though, if you want them to. But the superpower of these is that you're able to create eyebrows, which is something that we couldn't do very convincingly before, but it's really easy to do so now. So in a suburban area, you'll often see this sort of a design where you have a roundabout looking thing jetting off right here. And this provides you the opportunity to make more saleable lots. So that's why developers will do this. Now, instead of having one house right here and one right here, you get another one right in the angle right here. And I have a feeling that people are going to use these all the time. And having this available in the vanilla game is outstanding. I love this so much. Next, we have 7 parking lots and 2 new structures, and I think that you're all gonna love these. Right here, we have a small single row parking lot, and I think that this is gonna be a very flexible asset. And you might think to yourself, I could use this to make a parking lot, but we've got better options. I think that this would be really good along the side of the road, maybe at a beach or something like that. It's got lighting, it's got a few parking spots, and it's really, really flexible. Then we have this small solar panel covered parking lot. Imagine this being on the side of the road for EV charging. That's what I will probably use this for. Otherwise, it's just a really pretty asset. Right here, we've got a large version of that 1-lane parking lot that we had over here. So this would really work well along the beach as well, and it's got lighting all the way up and down it. Then we have a parking lot that I think is going to work really well if you're trying to make a shopping center. No fuss, no frills, just a very simple, moderate parking lot. Very nice asset. No grass on this, so if you want that, you'll have to scoot this out yourself. Then we get a larger version of that solar panel covered parking lot. This is the medium version, and look at the entire center is EV parking. So this is a really unique asset in that it has a ton of EV parking. Then we have 2 parking assets that I'm thrilled to see. These are gravel parking lots. The small gravel parking lot doesn't have any lighting, and the large gravel parking lot, or the medium one rather, does. So I could see using this in a very rural area if you want to have some sort of custom forest park or something like that. But this would probably work really well in a national park if you wanted it to feel rustic and rural, but still like it's part of something very official. So these are both excellent assets. And then we get over to our structured parking. And I have a feeling that you guys are going to love these. This one right here is the small parking building. It's got 42 parking stalls, and it's very, very small. This one is the parking structure that everyone's been asking for. This rectangular parking structure that has 220 stalls that you can tuck in between some buildings. And in fact, you can do that with both of these. This one though, you can add on, make it even taller. This one has no upgrades. But let me show you what I was able to do with these. Just a couple of seconds. Look at this. Where's the parking? Well, right here in the center, I've tucked away one of these small parking lots. Hid that back there, shoved the road right there. All your parking's in the center. You can have something nice on the front of the road rather than parking. Right here, I've taken the German assets and I've shoved that parking lot right in the center right here. And look at that, you can barely tell it's there. I can't make it any taller. If I were to do that, it would stick out like a sore thumb. Not ideal. but this is perfect with some of our European assets. I think it also works really well with the French pack. The one thing I will say about this is the strike zone for the asset isn't ideal. So you can see I have this road coming right here. If I delete this, the asset's not connected to the road. So the only way that you can connect this is to have this coming to at least right here. But then we have another entry point right here as well, so it doesn't quite work. So you might think I'll do this, not connected. So I do hope that this is fixed in the future, but for now, you can kind of do what I did. I used some 2D assets right here, and I was able to make it look like it was a cohesive structure with the parking lot tucked away in the middle. I've wanted this asset for so long. I'm super excited about this one. I'm going to use this one all over the place. And I bet you thought we were done talking about parking. Well, we are not, and that's because we have 12 new parking roads, and these assets are outstanding. So a few of these are just normal roads. Imagine placing these in your downtown area. You got a median right here, which means that you could add trees in the center of this or grass if you wanted to. And then you've got a couple assets like this, and these look a heck of a lot like parking lot roads. So you can imagine that I'm going to take all of my parking lots and redo them with these assets, because look at how nice the curbs look here. That's something that I could never nail in Road Builder, and now it's available. And if you want to make a gigantic parking lot, we've also got these parking lot alleys. So you can imagine planting trees right here and having people walk down the center here rather than using these sidewalks. Love it. This is so cool. Again, we have some of these that are at 90s and some that are at 45-degree angles. We've also got these larger roads. The other thing that I can see doing with these is taking these roads right here, which are 4 units wide, but have 2 lanes, and using them to reserve space for a future arterial. And you have that flexibility kind of all the way down this. So these roads are some of the most important roads that are in the game, in my opinion. And I think it's one of the best additions that we have in terms of the new assets. Although these are all fantastic, but these are super flexible. I've wanted these since City Skylines 1 as well. Editor Phil, and I have to cut in here. I've been working on the thumbnail for this video, and just check out what I've been able to do with these new roads. I was able to add palm trees to the center. I was able to add a wide sidewalk right here so no one parks in front of here. Over here, it might look a little strange that we've got some spots where there's no parking, but this is actually a good thing because we have a drive aisle right here and it's not being blocked by parking. So it's a really thoughtful addition to this asset. And it also makes me hopeful that in the future, we might see curb cuts because they know where they are. It's just not being added in just yet. You can see it right there. We just had a vehicle drive right through and there's no parking in front of it. So this is a really flexible series of assets. There's so much that you can do with this. You can create custom parking lots. You can create really interesting downtown streets. You can reserve right-of-way. These are the roads that I've always wanted for City Skylines. These are absolutely outstanding. Love these so much. But I also want to make one point. You're probably going to want to think about the buildings that you're placing on these because of the way that buildings interact with this asset. So right here, we have that new taxi depot. And because the taxi depot is here, there's no parking in front of this, so it looks a little bit strange. So I have a feeling that you're going to want to place this in areas where maybe you have wall-to-wall buildings, or you have a whole bunch of buildings that don't have curb cuts. But if you have buildings like this, you're probably going to have a bad time. So just keep that in mind when you're using these roads. And next we have 8 new roads. So these first 2 are new asymmetric highways. I think that these will probably be best if you want to make turn lanes and you want to have an extra turning pocket. These are going to be perfect for that. We've also got 3 new arterials. This one right here is a 4-lane asymmetric, 3 going in one direction, 1 going in the other. Again, perfect for turning. We've got a 6-lane asymmetric, 2 in one direction, 4 in the other. Again, perfect for turning. And a 7-lane asymmetric. If you were trying to make a monstrosity of an interchange, or intersection rather, this one is going to do the trick for you. And then we have 3 roads that I think you're all going to like a lot. This is a 1-way alleyway, a 1-way dirt road, and a 1-way pedestrian facility, which is really just a 1-unit pedestrian road. This is wonderful. Do know, though, you are going to have to get the directionality correct for services. But now I know so many people, particularly for European builds, have been looking for this narrow 1-unit pedestrian road, and now you have it. So these are excellent additions into the game. And our last new assets are 10 new pocket parks. And I think that these are lovely assets, not just because they are small and will fit into a variety of locations, but also because I think you're going to be able to use them very creatively. So we've got this park right here. These two right here are both 1 unit by 1 unit. So that's going to fit in a variety of locations, basically anywhere, but you should be able to pull the surfaces and make this fill some really awkward locations. Get a bit of activity in there, get some people sitting at the park, get some dogs wagging their tails. We've also got a 1 unit by 2 unit variant of this, a couple of them, a 2 unit by a 2 unit variant. This looks like you could have it in between 2 commercial buildings, have everyone go and eat after they get their meal. Also got this one right here, very similar, looks like a food truck plaza. Stretch the surface, make it fit an even larger area. Then we've got this longer variant of it. Again, looks like it could be near a shopping center, something of that nature. You can imagine drawing a road around here and having shops going all the way around it. This one right here looks like it could be in a rural area, or it could be in the middle of a bunch of buildings and just have it feel a bit more natural. Have some surfaces that some rain could penetrate. Then we've got these 2 longer variants of these as well. I can imagine placing these in between buildings so that people could walk back to a parking lot or something of that nature. Just a bunch of wonderful assets. I think you're going to be able to chain these together and string them together to make larger parks. And I think that these are assets that people didn't realize that they wanted. And now that we've got them, they're going to be the ones that you use the most. So absolutely love these parks. So now that we've gone through all of that, I can't help but think that this is the best and the biggest update that we've had for Cities Skylines 2 yet. It fixed bugs, it gave us new assets, it gave us new functionality, it did a lot. But this came after a free play weekend, and I don't really understand that. And as a fan of the game, it makes me feel disappointed because I know there are a ton of people that might have had a better experience if they would have had the free play weekend with this version of the game than the version that we had just a day ago. So I really hope that Colossal Order and Paradox think about that a little bit next time. I'm sure that they were. I'm sure that there was some sort of a timing issue, but it's really unfortunate because I think that there are some people that might be lost to this game forever because they had a bad experience in the free play weekend. And my stability's been a ton better. The game has just been a ton better for me. Now, with all of that said, is the game worth it now? I feel like I've got to answer this question because I see it all the time in the comments, but before I do, I feel like I have to explain my biases. Number 1, I'm a content creator. Cities Skylines 2 is the primary game on my channel. Also, I'm a huge fan of this genre. I always have been, I always will be, and I want the genre to do well, and right now, this is the game in the genre. The game has some things going for it. I think that since the very beginning, it's gotten a lot better. Performance has improved. DLSS implementation has really helped out some lower spec systems. It's made some of the flickering that you'd see in the shadowing disappear. There are a ton of new assets because of the region packs. There's official mod support now. There's a beta editor for maps, and there's just a lot of content now. There's also excellent zoning tools. So having the medium density, having all the different zones that are available now really make the game feel like it's much more fleshed out than it was before and like it has something over Cities Skylines 1. And that's to say nothing of the road tools, which are absolutely outstanding. And in my opinion, I think that the base game has a lot more depth than the base game for Cities Skylines, which a ton of people just bought for $3 a couple weeks ago. So I do think the base of this game is better than Cities Skylines 1, and I do think it's a lot of fun. But there are a lot of issues with this game still. There's no official asset support yet, and we don't know when it's going to come. So though we have the region packs, if you're looking for a very specific asset, you're not going to find it. I said that the zoning tools are excellent, and in some ways they are. You have medium density zoning, you have row homes, you have a whole bunch of different zoning categories, but we still don't have the ability to disable zoning on a road. And I don't know how we don't have that, considering they introduced it at the end of Cities Skylines 1's life. And it really makes zoning frustrating in this game. So I hope that that's added at some point, but it's not there right now. The DLS implementation that I just praised also kind of stinks. There's ghosting, and if you've played this game for any length of time, you will have experienced this. Many people resort to changing out their DLSS driver to make it look better, but that's not something that you should have to do. You shouldn't have to do that on your own. And if you don't do that, the game just looks terrible. It's also lacking a number of features that people would consider basics, like bikes and key walls. So I think that for many people, those are deal breakers. And if you're looking for information about certain things like homelessness, I know it's been fixed, but you still can't see any information about it. So those sorts of things are really frustrating. But I think that the thing that's at the top for me is that for a lot of people, myself included, playing Cities 2 shows you what a modern city builder could be. And in some cases, those deal breakers are so big that people won't want to play it. However, playing this game also makes you not want to play Cities Skylines 1. So if you think you might be in that camp, I would firmly say, do not play this game yet. If you are willing to risk it, there's a lot of fun to be had here. And with all the new content, I feel like it's in a much better place. It still needs some work, but it's gotten a lot better. I would highly recommend also finding a way to try it before you buy it. So if you are on the fence about buying it, try the Game Pass deal. It's back. $1, €1. Try Game Pass for 14 days, download the game, see if it works for you, download some big cities, see if your performance is good enough. That's a big thing. But for me, I think that I dramatically prefer Cities Skylines 2 over Cities Skylines 1, and it makes it really difficult for me to want to go back. So, do I recommend this game? Yes. Asterisks. Some people are going to like it, some people are not. Is it going to perform well for you? If it's going to, then you might like it. If it's not going to, then you're probably not going to. I think you've got to test that out first. And if you're going to play, I think that at the current point in time, playing with mods is the way to go, because there are small things like that zoning issue that I mentioned that can be resolved with mods. And Paradox mods is honestly fairly easy to use. The mods are very good. And I do think that modding for Cities Skylines 2 is kind of just miles beyond where modding was for Cities Skylines 1 at this point in Cities 1's life. And honestly, in general, I think that the mods that are available are just outstanding. And that leads into the next question. Console when? It's the question that I see more than basically any other question in the comments section. And for that, I have to say I don't really know. There haven't been all that many updates, but when we have gotten updates, we had the indefinite delay basically talking about performance, and then the most recent post on the Paradox forums where they basically said the game is working on consoles, but it looks bad and the performance isn't great, and they need to get it to where they want it to be before they're willing to release it. And honestly, totally respect that. And here's the thing. I think that with every single update that we get for the PC, we're getting slightly better at performance. We're getting pathfinding issues that are being resolved like we had in today's patch. And those all bode well for the console. Oftentimes in these patch notes, we're seeing that there are improvements to controller support. And every time that I see that, I just think they're still working on the console version. And if you've wondered what the console version will look like, check this out. I plugged a controller into my PC and it looks like I'm playing on an Xbox. So it's not as if it's not supported, it's just that they're not releasing it yet. And while I understand that these delays are frustrating, take it from me, take it from a PC player, it's better to have a delayed launch than a bad launch. The last thing you want is a game that's not very fun because it has all sorts of lag and bugs. Just wait for it. And I think that you're going to have a better time than we had on the PC. Now, if I had to wager a guess as to why this delay is occurring, I'm going to blame it on the Xbox Series S. And if you're an owner of that, I am too. I love my Xbox Series S, but it is objectively a lower powered system than the Series X and the PlayStation 5, and especially the PlayStation 5 Pro. And if you're going to have a game on Game Pass, my understanding is that it has to work on both the Series X and S. And if it doesn't, you can't release it. But they're still working on it, so hopefully it comes out next year. But again, I think that they should release it when it's ready and not a moment sooner, and I appreciate the approach that they're taking. And this is probably the last update video that we're going to have for the rest of the year, so I thought it might be fun to round things out with the top 5 improvements that I'd like to see for Cities Skylines 2 in 2025. But before we do that, I feel like we have to reflect back on this year and see how many things have actually improved this year by taking a look at our Cities Skylines 2 community fix list. Now, if you're not familiar with this list, back in May, we put this list together in the community tab, and we basically compiled everything that people wanted into this spreadsheet. And what you can see here, I just took a look at the first page, and this is about 50% green. Now, green to me are things that have been fully resolved, either through updates to the base game or through DLC and the region packs. And it's really impressive to me to see this many things addressed. Now, everything in orange are things that I think have been partially addressed. But I wanted to show you this because I think it's important to acknowledge the amount of good work that Colossal Order and Paradox have done this year and express a bit of gratitude for that. So I really appreciate everything that's been done. I can't wait to see what comes next. Now, speaking of gratitude, I want to take a moment to thank all of you. This has been a really fun year for me on the channel. It's been 1 year of streaming every single week. If you've been on streams, I want to thank you for that. If you've been watching the videos, I want to thank you for that. I couldn't do what I do without your support, and it means a ton to me. So with all of that out of the way, let's talk about next year. And number 5, I want to see additional animations. The game feels like it's missing something, and I think a big part of that is the lack of animation. So I really hope that we see that in 2025. Number 4, I hope that we see additional performance enhancements and support for other platforms. And those are combined because I think that they go together. If we see performance enhancements, we're gonna see City Skylines 2 on console, and I hope that we also see it on the Mac. And I think that there's a bunch of people who aren't playing the game because they don't have access to it because they're Mac first people. So I really hope that we get console support, Mac support, and performance enhancements. Number 3, zoning toolkit integrated into the base game or a zoning toggle. Reasonably, this was added at the end of City Skylines 1, and I couldn't imagine a world where this wasn't part of City Skylines 2, yet here we are. And over a year after release, it's still not in the game. I'm thankful that we have things like the line tool now, and it feels like the next natural step is the zoning toggle being in the game as well. It's so critical because the zoning is really frustrating right now. It is actually something that people tell me they don't want to play the game because the zoning is too broken. So I hope that that is in the game next year. Number 2, this is probably not a surprise. I want to see assets. I didn't realize just how badly I missed assets until we got the region packs. And then it made me go, oh my goodness, I need more. So I really hope that we see asset modding. I hope we see it early in the year. And I really can't wait to see what people do with it. I want to commission assets. There's so many things I want to do. So number 2, asset modding. And number 1 is probably not much of a surprise. I want to see bicycles in the game. Now, in my opinion, bikes should have been in the game from day 1. And I don't know why they weren't, but at this point, it doesn't matter. I just really want to see it in 2025. There's a few reasons for it. Number 1, bikes are a primary form of transportation. When I think about the modal hierarchy, I think about cars being at the bottom, transit, cycling, and pedestrianism. And you're missing one of the primary modes of transportation in the game right now. And if this is a game about cities and planning and urbanism, it's crazy to me that bikes aren't in the game. And I really hope that this doesn't come as a DLC. I feel like this has to be in the base game. I also really hope that it comes early because I know there are a number of people who are saying, I'm not going to play this game until there are bicycles. And I totally get it. Heck, I live in a platinum bicycle-friendly city in the US, one of the most bicycle-friendly cities in all of America, and I can't build my city because there are no bikes. So I really hope that we get them because it's so incredibly important. And again, I think it breathes a lot of life into cities. I feel like one of the reasons why people say that City Skylines 1 has so much more life than City Skylines 2 comes down to 2 things. The lack of bicycles, that's a lack of movement in your community, and number 2, the lack of animations. So if we could get those 2 things in the game, especially bicycles, I think a lot of people are going to be happy. A lot of people are going to come back to the game, and I know that I will like the game that much more. And with that, I think that we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and go over this update video, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate my editor for being willing to edit this as quickly as they did. This was a quick turnaround video. We just got the full version of the update today. So thank you, 1C2. I appreciate you. You're amazing. And with that, again, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.